Hey, it's Matt, your frontier friend, learning AI and the future of work together. In fact, learning things for the first time and sharing it with you. Not so much the first time today, but just want to show you the process that I've been going down to help a friend build a static website. He has a small business general contracting company, had a website a couple years ago, kind of got lost in the translation like a lot of small business owners face. And he said, hey, can you help me get this website up? And I said, sure. Help you do this. We've got AI now. I've been in WordPress for over 15 years, for those of you that don't know, which is literally everybody watching this. I come from a WordPress background, ran an agency for a decade, but always building the WordPress way and always building with WordPress. Building static with AI has this attraction these days because we think of speed and efficiency, and I can just prompt my way to this, and then hosting a site is near $0 when it's static. Which we'll take a look at today, deploying this to Cloudflare pages. And all of that is like really cool. But I think from an agency's perspective, I'm also looking at it through that lens with this, or if you're a freelancer, like how do we build repeatable workflows in an AI world where every time you prompt, you're getting a new outcome or you're getting a different outcome? And what does that mean for like the span of a business? Like one of the advantages of WordPress, as much as everybody likes to beat up on it, is that it doesn't change very often, which is a good thing when you're launching, dozens of client websites a year, if not a month, depending on like what size business you are. And that sort of stability is important because when you go a month or 6 months or 3 years and the client comes back to you and says, hey, we really want to make this change, you're not trying to figure out where we started from. You're not trying to figure out a different code base all the time. There's the exceptions, like the design's different, maybe custom plugins and stuff like that. But you know what your foundation is built on. That is the challenge that I'm finding experimenting with this setup, which is Claude Design, Claude Code, and of course deploying to Cloudflare. And I want to just share some of that. I want to just share with what I've done so far, how I've built this project. I do apologize. This might be a longer video, but I'm just going to bring you into the logic in the process that I followed. All right. I've done a video on Claude Design. We're looking at Claude Design right now. This has already been done, like the design is already done, so you won't see all of the prompts. But after this length of prompting, right about to here, before you see these photos, I built these mockups, this wireframe. And I started with a Claude Design wireframe project and just prompted that I want 2 different versions of the homepage, typical homepage, hero section, services, testimonials, call to actions. Claude Design, does a good job with prompting you the questions that it thinks you're going to ask, if you were designing a site with a client right in front of you. So it does a good job of prompting those questions to feed the design. And we did pretty good. I think the wireframe was pretty good. These are two different designs in terms of layout, and it looks pretty good. We have one that's more service first, as it labels itself up top, where the call to action at the top is windows, doors, home improvements built to last, call to action buttons. And then this is the one that is story first, where if you were promoting the story of the designer, of the general contractor, you'd start with that sort of flair to the layout. Family business, been in business since 1987, what we build. I ultimately chose the services first on the left-hand side as the homepage, but then we'll be using what you see as the story first as like the about page or like the bio section. So everything is pretty good with this wireframe. And you can see that it didn't really complete any of the content areas like in the footer, which is fine. Like that doesn't really matter. We're just here to wireframe some stuff. At the bottom of the story first version, you can see that it didn't really complete that either. Like it didn't complete what the form looked like, which again is okay because we were just mocking up the wireframe, and that's totally cool. So this is where we got in terms of planning the site. And the biggest drawback with Claude Design is the token usage is terrible. We are almost halfway through 2026, which is absolutely mind-boggling to say at the time of this recording. And the token usage for Claude Design is terrible. If you think your Claude code sessions are bad, or if you've not dipped your toe into any of this stuff yet and you've heard people talk about it, it is 10 times worse in Claude Design. I suspect, one, it's because they're still trying to figure out how Claude Design works and operates. Second, I think it's because they are also going to break this out into a standalone product that they want people to buy. Whereas a Claude Code, they sort of maybe shot themselves in the foot. It took off in insane popularity, but I think what happened was they weren't ready to subsidize as much of Claude Code as they have, and they're still trying to figure out that balance without losing everybody. And if they unleash Claude Design as they did Claude Code, they would just probably destroy their bankroll of money faster than they are with Claude Code. This whole design process actually took me 2 days because I had to wait a whole day or a day and a half or 2 days, I forget, for the Claude Design tokens to reset, which is absolutely brutal. Like if you were trying to rely on this for client services. Now I'm on the $100 a month plan, maybe a little bit better on the $200 a month plan. And then I don't think you can buy overage usage like you can with Claude Code with this, but you can't rely on this for a daily driver for design in your business unless you're doing like one website a month. I just wouldn't rely on this, because if this is all you know how to do on the design front, you're going to run out of tokens real fast, and you're going to be embarrassed if your customer asks you to do something. So then we started to build out a more detailed design. And I asked Claude Design to do a few things. Number one, I wanted a few different color variations, and I let it recommend it. I wanted something that was trustworthy, not super fancy is not the best word to use, but not super fancy. I didn't want something super flashy. I wanted something that was going to be representative of like a general contractor. Two, I wanted it to build or design SVG icons to represent the services section. This is something that in the WordPress world, I know this sounds like super like a throwaway moment or doesn't seem like that important of a detail, but creating custom SVG icons means that I can extract them and reuse them throughout the site. Whereas WordPress, I mean, certainly you could do that too. You could find SVG icons and hard code them in. WordPress also has a lot of plugins that will drop in icons, which are great. And that helps, of course, tremendously. But I knew I wanted it to create these custom SVG icons. So I knew I had those as files and I could repurpose them throughout the rest of the project. Sounds throwaway, but to me, it's important. And then I brought in photos that the contractor had. Luckily, he has a bunch of photos that he's got hundreds and hundreds of photos that he put into a Google Drive. And that was great. The problem was he had so many, and they were all like full resolution, right? So they're like, or at least full resolution on a phone. So they're all like 7, 8, 9, 10 megabytes in size. So you'll see down here in the left-hand corner, I have some of the images here. And I realized halfway through this that before I uploaded these images here, I was like, wait a minute, why am I wasting my time, hand choosing and hand picking these images and then trying to figure out which ones were the best? What I did do is bring in Claude Cowork to manually scan the images, resize the images, and label the images so that I could feed this to the system and the system could pick, or Claude Design could pick itself, which images were the best for this scenario. So let's go ahead and do that right now as a sample. Let's go to desktop, sample pics, and I'm going to select this folder. Now you can see all those images were like 2 megabytes plus. I just grabbed 11 of them from the drive and threw them in. So what I'm going to ask is, please run through the images in this folder and resize them to web optimal and change the file name to represent what is in the folder, what is in the image, and don't make it more than, I'll say 128 characters. Right, so I want it to go through all of these images, scan them for what's in the image, resize them, make them web optimal, and then also change the file names so that we know what's in there, right? So I'm going to allow that. And this process will run through, and then we'll come right back once this is done. All right, I'm going to jump in while the process is still running. It's almost finished, but I have the Finder window up here. You can see these are the original images up here and the size of them, 4.8 megabytes, 2.9 megabytes, and they're all just the file names right from this person's phone. And then you can see here, it's relabeling these and changing the file size. So now we're, much smaller in size, and the file names have been relabeled. So exterior house, corner gray, shower, subway tile, construction, and it has all of the details in that file name, which is great from an organizational purpose, right? When I'm trying to find these images and decide like which ones I'm going to bring over to the site, what goes in the gallery, etc. But also going to be fantastic when I incorporate these with either Claude Design or Claude Code when we are building out the gallery or landing pages for different projects and stuff like that. It's going to be able to, find the images much more accurately. And I'm just going to allow that. When we look in Claude Cowork, you can see it says things like, I've seen all 11 images, they're construction, renovation photos. So it's identifying them, saying all images are 4,000 by 3,000 or similar. So now I'll resize them to a 1920 pixels wide and 85 quality. And that's going to just give me all of, that summary right there. So Claude Cowork is great to incorporate into your project, especially if you're, dealing with that client who has just a ton of photos like I had. Just here, let me dump them off to you. That's a good thing. Number one, it's a good thing that you have a client that has content or especially photos to represent their work, but also a challenge when none of them are labeled or resized and you have to go through that whole process. All right, so when we come back to Claude Design, I dropped these images in here and I said, let's use some of these images from his job site to fill out the image sections of our mockup. You can decide which images fit and look the best based on their file name. So I think it did a great job. Like I love the image itself isn't amazing, but it's a nice looking door and it matches the color scheme really well, which could have just been super random that it selected that, or, Claude was smart enough to say, okay, based on this photo right here with the color, it matches really well with like the green and stuff like that. So I think it did a great job. We punch in, it pulls in the different images across the board for window replacement, full siding, entry doors, kitchen remodels. Like these are all services that, we have on the services page and services that he said that he actually does. So it lined those up really well. And honestly, I think it might have even pulled the EXIF data, EXIF data out of the image and sent actually set the location of this individual for all the different places that he worked. I believe I started this out by saying that this was a general contractor around the Boston area, and it identified cities and towns closer to where we actually are, which is really cool. So really happy with how this came out. And again, like this deck picture looks really cool. Like I just think it did a really good job of portraying the work. Maybe this one wasn't that good, but what I would plan to do on a section like this is click this and have a light box pop up. But one of the cool things that Claude Design does do is the tweaks setting or the tweaks option gives you these preset color schemes. I did ask it to give me 3 color schemes. So we have like this brick and oak color that it recommended. We saw the forest green from before and a harbor navy. And this one's okay. This one's like way more modern and almost feels like a software type of business. But the blue's okay. Like if he had a whole bunch of blue, that would be good. Brick and oak is not bad, but ultimately I decided to build out on the forest and stone as the final setup. The logo is something that I still haven't, worked on. He doesn't have a logo. This is just sort of like an anagram of sorts, which I asked it to build. This took actually a little bit of time to do this. For some reason, Claude really got caught up on trying to like figure out how to build this, which was like super easy. It was one of those weird things. But again, like building out this whole design took a lot of time, took a lot of tokens. And I'll tell you why, ultimately, is I think this was a whole day to get to this. And I don't remember if I could have finished the photos. But going into this project, I knew from a WordPress perspective, it's not just a homepage that I need. And this is where some like beginners in this space get caught up as well. It's not just the homepage you're going to need. You're going to need other layouts for the rest of the site. So homepage, about page, what does a contact page look like? What does a gallery look like for this individual? What does a 404 page look like if somebody doesn't, they hit a page that it doesn't exist? Whoops. That's the other thing. This Claude Design is really finicky with the zoom in. Like here's a 404 page. Here's what our gallery page will look like. Or actually, that's our blog page. This is a single post page right here if we incorporate a blog. And this is our design page that has our style guide that has all of the styles. And I told it to make this stuff because this is very common in the WordPress world. When you're going to pick a WordPress theme, you typically have all of these blog templates and layout templates that you can choose from to help build out the entire site. So I knew I wanted this with like a little branding kit to have at the ready when I go to actually build this HTML website. So this is where we landed, but this took 2 whole days because of the token limits. And there was just no other way around it. I haven't designed the plain text page, which I still need to do. But the ultimate plan is after we build this in HTML, I might convert this into an Astro site with a CMS at the core. I'm not sure which one I'm going to choose yet. I know there's M-, which is Cloudflare, but that is still further down the road. I might not even do that. I might just stick with the HTML static site. Speaking of HTML and static, I'm just going to pull up cursor so that we can see this. I'm just going to zoom this out. I mean, just to give you an overall view. Look, at the end of the day, I've been running WordPress sites for so long that I'm not really worried about performance, and I'm not really worried about any kind of like spaghetti code in this HTML. I'm sure the SEO and the purists out there will tell you that you need some kind of structured HTML in some certain way for it to perform. We'll get there. It's just I'm not there in the project just yet. I do plan on running some SEO audits when we've built the sort of final full version of the HTML, but this is what it looks like. I mean, everything is clean and organized. There's some inline documentation, if you can call it that. So content, inline call to action, article body, sidebar. Like I can come into this and look at if there's a problem. I can come into this code. It's very easy for me to see this stuff and decide what to do. One thing it did do, so when I exported this as HTML from Claude Design, it was actually a nightmare process. It kept failing, and I think expended more tokens than I needed, and it chewed up like that whole budget as well. I can't stress enough how terrible the token usage is with Claude Design. But when I exported this, it has all of the colors from all 3 color palettes in here, which I would ultimately remove. I did spend a lot of time with Codex going through and relabeling all of the CSS because it was really bad. It was just like random strings of text and random numbers that it used, for all of the elements and stuff like that. And it was pretty bad when I exported it from Claude Design. So be prepared to, have that be a thing, if you're extracting HTML and CSS from Claude Design. At least, again, at this point in time, it didn't do a really good job. There is a send to Claude Code button inside Claude Design, but I didn't want it to hand off to Claude Design in the browser or in the app. I wanted to download it and work with it on my local computer because I want to be able to bounce between Claude Code and Codex when I'm working on a project for various reasons. But you can download the project as a zip and export as PDF, PowerPoint, go to Canva and stuff like that. I think the problem is like all of this stuff here, my biggest negative with Claude Design, again, back to the token usage, is like all of this stuff is like sending it a prompt to export as PDF, and you're using token usage against this. And that's where me as a consumer and somebody who's like a product person, I get aggravated at that because it's like, wait a minute, now you're going to charge me the tokens. Like I get the tokens for like the critical thinking part of this app. And, if I'm asking it to make me designs and layouts and I want to modify those designs and layouts, that's fine. Like I will spend the tokens for that, but it feels like you're also making me spend tokens to do like core export stuff. if I want to send it out as a zip, like I shouldn't have to pay for that, because now if it fails, which it did a few times, I'm asking it to regenerate, and it's like doing all that code over again. So it's like, how efficient are these processes that you've made? Not so efficient as I learned when I exported it as standalone HTML. So that really rubs me the wrong way. Again, early days for Claude Design. I hope they do change that. So spent a bunch of time just like cleaning things up with Codex. I've been finding a little bit more success with Codex lately. I think this is something you'll hear from other people. Claude Code 4.7 has sort of like tanked in performance. I've been working with it on a project before, and it's just like taking so much longer. It's not being as accurate as it used to be. There's a lot of sort of pitfalls to the 4.7. Hopefully that improves, but we've seen this as like this, up and down success rate with Claude Code. At the end of the day, finally got it built. As you saw in Cursor, everything's structured, everything's ready to go. And one of the reasons why I like to interface with it on my terminal is because on my Cloudflare account, either Claude or Codex can interface with Wrangler, which will deploy and provision Cloudflare resources right from the command line. And we're talking about like non-critical stuff here. So when I'm on in the terminal and I finally finalize the site, I said, just like deploy this to a page in my Cloudflare account, and it just goes and does that. And you can see here, if we look at the details of this deployment, you can see all the files here, 61 files uploaded. Just takes all the images, all of the HTML, and sends it up to the page. I could improve the performance of this by offloading these image assets into R2 buckets, I believe, in Cloudflare, which will help cache those images and serve those images from CDN locations across the globe, which I would do when this is ready. But very, very easy to deploy this page right to Cloudflare, and it's just up and running. And I can just show the client like super fast. Here it is, HTML in the browser. I had to clean up a lot of the mobile stuff. This form doesn't work yet, but otherwise like good to go on a demonstration to the client, and he likes it. And then I'll have to attach a custom domain to this, which I'll buy from Cloudflare, and it'll be, super, super easy to just launch the site. And again, like he doesn't need content management abilities, but I do as somebody who's going to help him, run the site, especially for the blog part. So look for that in a future video, but that's where I'm at. I've got the HTML site up. Cost me nothing to host it on the Cloudflare front. And it just took a ton of tokens and time because Claude Design was just super slow. I mean, it's not an amazing looking site, but it is pretty good. And it doesn't look like the typical AI design sites, but there's definitely some patterns there. Like this section right here is a very common pattern that I've seen in other AI design sites, but it looks really good for small business contractor. And I think it builds and instills a lot of trust when a visitor comes to the site. It is certainly better than nothing, which is what he has now. So in my next versions, as I said, I'm going to build out the rest of the pages and then decide if I'm going to run a content management system or not. What are the advantages for a content management system? Just looking ahead, if you don't know the answer to this, one, I do have a blog template here, and I would love to get him to have unique content for when he launches new projects, or if he wants to do like an educational piece for customers and potential clients. So I would like that. SEO purposes just makes life a little bit easier to maintain the typical SEO stuff, which again is just as easy from a terminal or a command line. But in the future, if he just wants it, I want to have it just set up and ready to go for him. And then just like general maintenance of pages. Like, do I want to crack open Claude Code every time I need to make a little adjustment and like spend the tokens, wait for it to deploy and all that stuff? Probably not. If I can just go into a CMS, change a price, change a phone number, change an email, I want to be able to do that. The biggest thing that I haven't solved, and again, because I do have a day job at Gravity Forms, is what am I going to do for the contact form? I've built a custom contact form on Cloudflare before, and it takes like 4 different services that you have to route through, and you have to have a worker just for the contact form. It's like a nightmare, and I don't want to just offload to a third-party form, like, any other like SaaS-based hosted form, and any good contact form, like custom contact form that I can embed, you're looking at like $35 a month, which isn't like a big deal, but it's not about the money. It's about telling him that he has to sign up for it and he has to maintain it. And I might cross that bridge and just like do it. But it's also weird because with Gravity Forms, I just drop it right into a WordPress site and I have tons of functionality through integrations and automations and all this other stuff. So that is a huge drawback in my mind, but I'm biased because it's my day job and it's just something I've used for well over a decade at this point. So long video. I really just wanted to show you in behind the scenes of like that whole thought process and how I've got here. If you're still here watching, kudos to you. You're a true hero. Thumbs up if you like the video. Have any questions for me, drop them in the comments below. Hope you found some of this behind the scenes useful for your website building experience.